All right, hey, it's Donovan. I'm back with part 2 of the series, Getting Kids into Competition Shooting. All right, so again, this is going to be multi-parts. The videos are going to be a little bit longer. In the description will be a link to all the different parts. I highly suggest, if you're not sure, if you just stumbled upon one of the parts, go back, watch part number 1, and it'll tell you what's going on and kind of the methodology of this. All right, so we're going to get into some things here. I am not going to cover how specifically to train the kids or new shooters how to do things. I'm going to point you at other resources from professional trainers that are free that can help you better understand and how to explain it to your kids on how to get things done. Stuff like the draw process, the trigger press, the sight picture, okay? A lot of this stuff will be linked in the description down below, so you can just go down there, okay? This is more of a methodology, the step-by-step process of the methods on how I cover things. In part 1 I mentioned I look for things that are economical. I do have several kids, so I can't be spending tons of money per kid. That would just be crazy. All right, so let's get started. All right. So there's certain things that you need to do, you need to cover with kids before you even hand them a gun. I'm sure all of us have been to a range and seen these grandpas or these dads that bring their 50, 60-year-old 22s out there, and they load it up with live rounds, and then they plop the kid in there, and the kid's never even touched the gun before. It's happened to me more than once, and I've packed up my stuff and I've left. The first time a child handles a gun it should not be the range with a live round in the chamber, okay? If you're doing this, please stop. For all things holy, please stop. It's just the wrong way to do things, all right? So before you even let them touch the gun, they need to understand the 4 safety rules, okay? There's variations of what exactly they are, you know, but they all have the same premise, okay? Give them, and we all know you have to fail 2 of them at the same exact time in order to earn the Darwin Award, okay? You're only going to get a negligent discharge with an injury if you fail 2 of them, okay? It takes you, even if you fail 1 of them, nobody's going to get hurt unless you fail 2, okay? So, and that's why there's 4 rules, and if you keep following all of them, you know, you'll be all right. So kids need to understand what these are. So start prepping them early. Hey, this weekend we're going to do some training drills with the gun to get you ready to go to the range next week. So the rest of this week, we're going to practice the safety rules. While you're making dinner, surprise test them with the safety rules. Okay, ask them what they are. Give them help phrases. The one I used was all triggers point beyond. Okay, so that way each word sparks their memory on how to remember, you know, always point or treat all weapons like they're loaded. Miles, give me another one.
I'll treat all weapons as if they're loaded.
You know, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Can you tell me what one of the 4 safety rules is? What is it?
Keep your finger off the trigger unless you're shooting.
That's right. Good girl. Thank you. Always keep the gun pointed in the right direction. Make sure of your target and what's beyond. Hi, Steph.
Hi.
What's another one of the safety rules?
Always know what you're pointing at and what's beyond it.
Okay. A help phrase really helps kids remember all of them, okay? Their brains are just, they're going a mile a minute, and so it's you got to help them out a little bit, all right? Explain the rules for drilling, okay? practice rules and drilling rules should be very, very similar to live range rules, okay? And why they're not exactly the same is because you have extra rules. Like no ammunition in the room, period, end of conversation. That's a little hard to do out at the range considering you need ammunition to fire the gun, okay? So they're not exactly the same, they're very, very similar, okay? Kids need to understand that you are going to let them handle the gun pretty much 90% of the time when they want to, okay? But they need to ask before they do it, okay? As long as they know, I'm of the belief that as long as you let them do what they need to do, what they want to do, but under a controlled environment, they won't go searching for it on their own, okay? Take the mystique away from the gun. Now, I'm not saying leave them hanging out all the time. I keep my guns locked up. All responsible parents should. But when my kids ask to drill, I stop what I'm doing and we go drill, okay? I encourage that. I encourage them and reward them for asking permission. That's my methodology. You know, everybody makes their own decisions on that. The kids need to understand that, like I said, they need to ask before touching the gun, even during drills. Before they pick that gun up, they take no action until directed to do so. It's very important because that translates out into the range and to competitions. You do nothing with that gun until directed to do so. Start that right from the very beginning, right from the very first drills, and then when they go into competition, it's just a natural part of the process, okay? They don't have to retrain, all right? Also, before they even get to touch the gun, you need to show them the different components of the gun, right? Where the muzzle is, where the trigger guard is, the slide, the safety. You have to familiarize them and test them. Point to a part, have them tell you what the part is. So when you're talking about things and you're explaining them, they have a frame of reference. So they know what you're talking about. If they don't know what the trigger guard is, you're going to talk about the trigger guard, but they might be thinking it's the trigger. So you have to, going back to that, our last part, assume nothing, okay? If you haven't watched part one, watch part one. It'll give you a framework of how I'm talking about this, all right? So make sure they understand the different components of the gun before they even get to touch the gun. All right. So home training. So trigger discipline is going to be number one. In all competitions, if you don't have trigger discipline, your day's going to end early, okay? Trigger discipline is how accidental discharges, negligent discharges happen. Everything comes down to that damn finger. That ridiculous keep your booger hooger off the bank switch. Yeah. Okay. Whatever you like to say, whatever works for you. Trigger discipline. Keep your finger off the damn trigger. Keep it on the outside of the trigger guard. That has to be the natural home position. Okay? That has to be natural to them. So we have to constantly beat that into them. Well, not physically beat that into them, but repetitive nature beat it into them. How to pick up a gun. Okay? I know for my youngest, 6 years old, she did, 3 sessions. It took me 3 sessions, I think, like 15 minutes apiece before she could actually pick up the gun, keeping her finger out of the trigger guard. She was just so tiny. She's young. But eventually, there was no problem. She'd pick it up, and her finger would just be out of it. It became home. So every kid is different. Sometimes they'll pick it up in 10 minutes. You still have to test them later on and make sure that they remember. Hey, Paige, do you remember doing drills on the pistol? But eventually it just becomes habit. Each kid's different. It takes a different amount of time to create that habit. You have to teach them how to verify the gun's empty. Now, this is partly on you, okay? When you are handing them a gun or you're setting a gun on the table for them to pick up, they need to see that you are constantly checking that gun, setting it down, and then telling them to pick it up. Okay? They need to see that you're checking it. That's why you're making them check as well. Trust but verify. Okay? That way they get into the habit, no matter what, when they pick up a gun for the first time, they're going to check and make sure that it's empty. Right? These are basic safety stuff that we take for granted. Assume nothing. They don't know it. Okay? You have to drill that into them. When they're verifying for empty, be careful how you explain it to them. If you tell them that they're looking for brass, check the chamber to make sure you don't see brass. Okay? In your brain, you're still checking for brass. You're checking for brass. I don't want to see brass, so is there any brass in there? Versus checking for an empty chamber. Okay? It's a mental trick, but if they just going through the motions and they're not consciously focused on what they're doing, they could see brass and just say, okay, good. I'm checking for brass. Yep, it's there. And start with their drills. So think about that. Maybe you don't buy into this mental game theory. You have to make your own decisions. Again, I'm telling you what I do. I have them check for an empty chamber. I don't have them look for brass. Weapons manipulation, okay? They need to be able to fully manipulate that weapon before they're able to go to the range and fire the weapon. Obviously, some things change when it comes to little people and rifles, simply because of a weight thing. I have videos on my channel where my 6-year-old is fully operating a Ruger 1022, but she can't even hold it up. We use a table and as a bench rest, and she's just standing there. She's putting the mag in herself. She's clicking the safety off. She's charging it. She can manipulate the weapon. She's just not strong enough to hold it up because she's so tiny. So each individual kid is going to be different. Each situation is going to be different. You, as the parent, as the trainer, are going to have to make that judgment call. But the safety of your children and other people around you is up to you. My 12-year-old daughter, before she was able to go shoot the AR or the AK-47, she did weapons manipulation drills at home. Hey, so what did we do before you went to shoot the AR?
Well, we did many drills at home on like weapon handling and knowing all the parts of the AR and like reloading and things like that.
Okay. We went over the safety, how to manipulate the safety, how to charge it, how to put the magazine in, all that stuff before she was able to go out and live fire it. If she wasn't able to pass certain tests, she didn't get to shoot it. Okay? And that's just the way it works for me. And I kind of like that mentality because when you get out on the range, you have live rounds, there's no confusion. Okay? They already know what's going on with the gun. They know how to manipulate the gun. There's no question. There's no, ooh, I forgot how to do this. Hey, Dad, and start spinning around and create a dangerous situation. Okay? So there's that. Also with that, you're going to need to make sure when it comes to handguns, a proper grip. Okay? Now, what is considered a proper grip has changed over the years. People remember the T-cupping and the forward-back Weaver stance versus isosceles and blah, 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 blah. Things change over the years as new information comes out, ammunition changes, guns change. So don't teach your method. Again, going back to part one, drop the ego. No one cares what it was like back when you were a kid. No one cares. Teach the proper accepted standard for today. Okay, set them up for success moving forward. Don't train a child to use a 30-year-old tactic. Okay, show them. You yourself should watch the Michael Seeklander or Bob Vogel videos on how to get a proper grip. Then go ahead and teach your child or the new shooter how to get those grips. Maybe you can use that as an example of how you and them are training together. You know, kids like that, right? But don't teach your method. There's more to a grip than what many people think, right? So look at those videos, listen to them, and study them and practice them. Sight picture. Sight picture is really, really hard to get across in words to a new shooter or even to a child. Use pictures. There's plenty of videos on the internet that show sight picture. The Michael Seeklander videos have some good descriptions and visuals on what a proper sight picture looks like. So just don't use words, use pictures. Pictures really help a lot of people. And we're trying to build a really strong, solid foundation here, so that's important. Trigger press. Girls and females in general with this are going to be much better than the Call of Duty boys will be. I have much easier time training my girls than my boys when it comes to trigger press. So explain what the take-up is on the trigger and where that wall is. Let them feel it. You know, rack the slide if you're using handgun rifles. You know, do what you need to do. But make sure they understand what the wall is. Okay, I think Glock may call it the bump sometimes. I've heard it both ways, but majority of the time it's called the wall. So make sure they understand that, and make sure that they know where to put that trigger, not in the crease, not right on the tip, but right in the meaty part of their finger. Pay attention to this. They have to get comfortable. They need to, this needs to be second nature, okay? Dry fire practice. So once they get all of that pretty much solid, let them go ahead and dry fire practice. Start from a low ready. Don't be incorporating draw into this quite yet. They don't need to be worrying about draw yet. The draw has its own training issue. So let's just keep it from a low ready. You know, point it about 10 feet out in front of you at the ground, and then bring the gun up, sight picture to the target, trigger press, go through the motions just like you're mimicking it. What would it be on the range? Okay, so those are some of the things that need to happen before you go to the range. The training at home. You need to make sure that these kids are completely comfortable with that gun before you give them live ammunition. Okay, one of the things that helps too, the no ammunition in the room at all, period, in a conversation. That goes for adults just like it goes for kids. Train them that way, make sure they understand. I mentioned in video 1, sorry, my dog's barking, that some holster manufacturers include a practice barrel. Usually it's like a bright orange or a bright yellow barrel that you can actually take the stock barrel out and put the practice barrel in, so that there's no question whatsoever that gun cannot go off. Sometimes that helps, and if you have those available to you, use them. It helps the kids, understand this is practice versus this is real. Have fun with it. Be involved. But above all things, you need to be a student of the gun before you can teach another student of the gun. Okay? So a lot of this is on you. If you're not willing to learn, if you think you already know it all, you've already lost, and you're only going to hurt your child or the new shooter in the process of moving forward in the shooting sports, okay? So be open to learning different things. The learning process never ends, and I'm looking forward to input. So if you have any differing opinions, you don't like what I said, you love what I'm doing here, leave a comment down below. Like, subscribe. I'll check you next time. See you in part 3.